Hi, everybody. My name is Emeka. I am a writer, an essayist, and I'm also a poetry evangelist. I am on another episode of the poems I love, and today the poems I'll be reading are poems that talk about love and kindness, and I hope you find them enjoyable. My first poem, it's my favorite poem and is by the Nigerian poet Romeo Oriogun. It's titled It Begins with Love. In the fishing village, a man walks toward a bar, whispers, "Let nobody, bloated and gone, find its way to my boat." He gives thanks to the wild, to the ants running from his sandals, to the vulture standing over the roadkill. Romeo, the day begins with love, I tell you. After the long night, after the rain, after the sleep of the hibiscus, the world opens its hands to sunlight. There is time for everything, for the child running down the street struggling with his clarinet, for the laborer kissing his wife's belly, for the newborn seeing color. It begins with love, I tell you. Even prayers. And I have stood in the middle of a field and missed the gaze of antelopes. I have prayed for thunder, a rod on my head. I, who have lived for 10 months without a friend, whose sole fear is the world so full of love, so full of loneliness. I have panicked, wondering if to hold a drowned body is to hold a part of myself. And we hear it, a call, another body washed out the river. We run toward it. It begins with love, I tell you, even burial. The hand covered with sand, crown of seaweed. I walk to him, a song, a song. Omi, spells in death, spells in life. In the strangeness of villages I suffer. What else is there to do? The next poem I'm going to be reading is Don't Hesitate by Mary Oliver. This is a very short and beautiful and poignant poem, I'll say. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give into it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back. That sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. The next poem I'll be reading is My Legacy Will Be Different. It is from the first um, anthology of African poetry published by 2035 Africa, and this poet is Kondwa Rayne. My legacy will be different. I pinch my arm as if just by pressing I could shrink my flesh, step on the scale as if I were stepping off the gangplank every Monday morning into the deep. Every week, the same cycle. I wish I was smaller. I wish I was happier. I long for the day I finally get to live in the body I was supposed to have. But longing is not living. My body is here now. She has carried me through love and loss, through triumph and heartbreak. This body bears the tracks of my tears, knit into my skin, carved into my bones by my mother and her mother before her. This generational milestone, this weekend inheritance. It's time to lay this burden down. My next poem is also from the same anthology published, and it's titled Silver Spoons by Lydia, Kasese. The loss of our jobs has made us soft with caring. It has humbled our tongues and taught us to ask, how are you today? In the places where frustrations, silence, deadlines used to lie, The new woman at work asks me what my plan is. If I have a plan, I laugh and I say, I have no plan. My parents are my plan. I will go back to them and leech onto their success. What will you do? She looks down and murmurs, I cannot go back to my parents empty handed. I am their success. I think I wear my privilege a bit too loudly on some days. I forget we do not all come from milk and honey, silver spoons and golden eggs. Okay, so like I said, the first poem by Romeo Oriogun, it is a poem that has gotten me through a lot of emotional turmoil. As someone who deals with a lot of health issues, I find it very hard to, get by sometimes. And my friends, I have wonderful friends and they're really kind to me. My friends, for the past 4 years, every time I tell them, oh, this is my favorite poem, and every time I'm going for surgery, I'm having having to be at the hospital, my friends will always read It Begins with Love for me. And it is just a very beautiful expression of how I think, people show up for you in some of these spaces. Romeo is like a Nigerian poet I've always admired, even from when I was interested in poetry. Romeo is someone who, he's someone, as a Nigerian literary person, someone I'm really really proud of, and I'm just glad that I get to share my love for this poem. And the next poem by Mary Oliver, Don't Hesitate, is very simple. It's like a clarion call. It's saying that yes, life is very shitty. We are not assured every day. So anytime there is joy, we should go out and grab it by its horns and then enjoy and sit with our joy. So that is that poem. My legacy will be different is a very I love this poem. It struck me because I have had you know, very close calls with people who have problems with maybe body images, and I feel very tender and I care a lot about people and the perception of bodies. The world is not very kind to a lot of bodies, dark skin, fat bodies, and it jars me when I notice it every day. If I'm taking a bike with a friend who is a little bit on the big side, there's always going to be a comment, and many times they are just very desensitized towards it. And I can feel sometimes, even though a lot of people will not talk about it, but I can feel like the pain, the trauma in this poem. So that's why I read it. And this poem at the end, it talks about the struggles of someone who wants to be smaller, but at the end of the day, she finds that she's able to actually love herself and say, no, this is me, this is who I am. I'm going to luxuriate, I'm going to celebrate myself. Like, the poet will say, I celebrate myself. So yes, that is what the poem is about. Then the next poem, Silver Spoons. Well, we live in a very unequal society. There is a lot of capitalist destruction going on right now, and many times, I mean, many of us are not very connected to class, and so this is coming from someone who may who may be classed, who may be who may come from wealthy or maybe well-to-do or maybe middle income parents, and it might have given her a sense of guilt because it's something that happens with people who come from middle income families. There's the sense of guilt. Oh, I didn't struggle. There's some of these things were handed to me, and it can be quite destructive for some of these people. And well, she was able to saying, okay, this is my privilege. This is my privilege, and she was able to discuss it. I love this poem because there's not a lot of talk about privileges. A lot of people want to say, okay, you know what, I've had it tough, like I giving a grass to grace story, but this is the reality. Not all fingers are equal, and we have to actually acknowledge that. So that's why I like this poem. I'd say that these poems these poems are mostly meditative. They are poems that ask you to think. They are poems that ask you to see yourself in a light that another person would see you from. These are poems that, would ask you to be kind to yourself no matter how you look like. These are poems that would say, be kind to other people around you who are not as privileged as you. And so, yes, these are poems of kindness. Be kind to your spirit, be kind to your soul, be kind to your neighbor, and be kind to yourself. Thank you.